Ed Park. I'm the founder of Neuro Reserve, and as many of you know, or some of you may not, Neuro Reserve is a company that's focused on brain health. It's brain health and wellness, and particularly nutrition, and these nutritional interventions that can help us strengthen our long-term brain health for lasting brain health, healthy brain aging. And a big piece of that lays with also our connection with other people and the purpose we have in our lives. So that's a big piece of brain health as well as nutrition. So we're going to focus in on purpose today. It's never too late to do this sort of thing. Obviously, think about what purpose we have in our lives and the vision we have for our lives. And so it's great to have Jeannie Rosner join us. She's from Soul Food Salon. And
hello.
Hey, how's it going, Jeannie?
It's great. This is my second Instagram Live. My first one was like 3 years ago, so I'm glad I was able to figure out the technology. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Again. Yeah, you bet. And so I was just starting off and introducing you without you here, but just to do a little bit because I'd rather you introduce yourself, which you can do much better. But for everyone joining up right now, so we're going to talk about purpose and vision through a framework called Ikigai. And Jeannie has a huge passion in that, knows a lot about it. And Jeannie is the founder of Soul Food Salon. And she is also a physician, a pediatric physician, did work in California at Stanford Medical Center. And then later on, she went into this process of Ikigai, and that led her in different directions. So I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how Soul Food Salon came about, what it is, and what led you there.
Great. Yeah, so thanks so much, Ed, for having me. I'm a big proponent of Neuro Reserve. I take my Relevate every day, so thank you. So my name's Jeannie Rosner. I practiced pediatric anesthesia for about 20 years at Stanford Medical Center. And I've always had a passion for health and wellness, for nutrition, for eating well, living a healthy lifestyle, essentially. And when my son was in 5th grade, so this is 2011 at this point, I approached his science teacher and asked if I could come in and start teaching health and wellness classes in his school. And she said yes. And so I started teaching, and it was like my aha moment. And so I left the world of anesthesia, and I've now continued to teach. But perhaps, I can go into a little bit more detail about how that whole segment evolved in my life as we talk about Ikigai. But so I teach in our local middle and high schools at this point. I left anesthesia in 2012, and I kind of teach wherever. I have a kind of a regular teaching gig at the school that my son was at, my son now is a junior in college. But it was that teacher that, her name is Jen Parker, allowed me to do what I wanted to do. I had the credibility being an MD, which was nice. And I went in and started teaching, and it opened up a whole avenue of things and a whole world that I have just so enjoyed. It's really, it's my passion. And I learn a lot as much as I can. I'm very curious, and I love to teach whatever I learn. So whether it be on the form of Instagram or teaching in the middle and high schools, that's what I do. And then in 2014, I started, so I teach I teach younger kids, like adolescents, essentially. And then I started
some. Really need that, so nutrition and
it's
things
super
like that.
fun, and maybe hopefully planting the seed, no pun intended, for like healthier living. But and then I started Soul Food Salon, and I started that in 2014. And Soul stands for seasonal, organic, unprocessed, local, and salons are small gatherings. So my hope is I hold monthly events. Originally they were here in my home, where I had someone come and talk and do like a didactic talk, and then we alternated with cooking events, whether it be an MD cooking or a chef or a cookbook author. And it's basically created like a really nice sense of community, and we were all kind of learning together, which was super fun. And then we have now been virtual for the last few years.
Yeah.
And we are venturing into a live event in person April 4th, actually, with Aaron Gleason from the Forest Feast, which super excited about.
Oh, that's
so that's been my journey. And I would say, like, I'm blessed because I really feel grateful. I think I have found my Ikigai, which is my passion, my purpose.
Yeah. As we talk about Ikigai, I think probably more color and more detail will come out in your own story and how it was Ikigai basically applied, into your life. And so we can dive right into it, So what, first thing is, when it comes to Ikigai, what does it mean, and where does it come from?
All right, so it's a Japanese word. It doesn't have like a literal meaning, but it essentially translates to, like, what is your purpose? Like, what drives you to get up in the morning? Like, what inspires you? And it originated in Okinawa, Japan, where they happen to have the most centenarians, people that are 100 years or greater in age. And they live a very healthy lifestyle. They eat plant-based diet predominantly. They have social relationships and social connection, but they also abide by this concept called Ikigai. And it's like a grounding principle that they've used. So essentially what Ikigai is, I'm going to show you a little picture. Let's see if people can see this. I'm not sure if this comes backwards, but
Yeah,
I'll tell you what it.
Figure it out. I think it's a little bit of a. There we go.
Okay, so basically, I'll go through this in detail, but let me just point out to you some of it, and then I'm going to put the paper down. So basically, Ikigai is the confluence of these circles. So the theme is what I love, what do you love, what are you good at, what can you be rewarded for, and what does the world need? And the confluence of these four circles in the center is your Ikigai, or your sweet spot. So that's like where you're in flow, where you don't even realize that you're working. Your work and pleasure is kind of meld together, and you just find your sense of balance, and you thrive. That's where you have the most resiliency. You express most gratitude. And so these people in Okinawa, Japan, abide by Ikigai, and it helps them thrive. That's a contributing factor to them having such a large age, greater than 100 years of life. And many of them are free of illness and chronic disease, which I think Ed's going to chime in a little bit on. Their they have a decreased risk of dementia, or decreased incidence of dementia and mental health issues. And I believe a lot of that is attributed to them abiding by this concept of Ikigai.
Yeah, it's funny, Annie Fenn, and she just wrote in the comments saying, hey, it's good for the brain to read it backwards. So I think it's great that you put it up. But the sense of purpose, that the Ikigai, almost like ethos. You spoke a little bit about, Okinawa. It's a blue zone, right? It's one of those areas where people live the longest and healthiest lives. So not only having a long life, but also a long lifespan, but also a long health span, right? And so I was thinking about that, because when it comes to these blue zones, there's another one in Costa Rica called the Nicoya Peninsula, right? And they have, a phrase that they use for purpose in life. They call it the plan de vida, right? In Loma Linda, California, which is another blue zone, proves that we can live a blue zones kind of life in America, right?
Yeah.
But their purpose is driven very, very, very strongly with their faith, right? It's a Seventh-day Adventist community in Loma Linda, right? It's a very tightly knit community there in their faith. And there's a lot of volunteering associated with that. And so I think that that this purpose is extremely important for brain health. I mean, it's so important that even some very well-established medical institutions like the Cleveland Clinic, when they put together the 6 pillars of brain health, right? They put, like, there's nutrition, there's exercise, there's sleep, there's managing chronic conditions like cardiovascular risk and diabetes risk, and there's obviously cognitive training and stimulation. But there's one there that they put in, and that was social connectedness and purpose, right? And because our purpose drives how we interact with other people, why we interact with other people. And so it can't be understated how important purpose in life is for our long-term brain health. So of course, we're very concerned with long-term brain health at Neuro Reserve. Our primary mechanism is through nutrition, but we're concerned about it in all dimensions, really, and purpose is so important. So what I think Ikigai is great about is that it provides a really nice framework. It's a nice structure to look at, and it's simple enough to kind of keep in your head. Like there's 4 things. Like what do I love, what am I good at, or what are my strengths? What does the world need, where are the needs, and then finally, how can I feel appreciated? And then putting that all together. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, so. You have to walk us through each one of these. So each one of these 4 things is really important. And so anyway.
All right, so let's do that. So let's look at the first circle is what do you love? And I like to think of it in this way. Think about a day. Let's say I'm going to put you guys, like, if you want to close your eyes and kind of think about this, close your eyes and think about like the ideal day for you, where you're not working. It's a weekend. You have no responsibilities, no children, to deal with. You don't have to go to work. You don't have to go to the dry cleaner. You have nothing but like a free day. What would you ideally do? Like what would you enjoy doing most? Would it be cooking? Would it be going to play ceramics? Would it be going out to take a hike in nature? Would it be to go hang out with your friends? Would it be, what would it be? What is it that you really love doing?
Yeah, and I think my sons, just being outside, sunlight, all that,
Yep. So there's a couple things that I would suggest in this exploration. So I mentioned that I approached my son's 5th grade science teacher years ago. I had started working with a life coach. Her name is Kathy. And the reason I approached her was I was working as an anesthesiologist at Stanford, and I loved what I was doing, but my work commitment was just like pretty intense. It was very challenging. It was really hard to juggle being a mom, being a doctor, just doing it all and doing it all well. So I reached out to my friend Kathy and we started working together. And we did a few things. One thing that I highly recommend is creating a vision board. You can actually see a vision board. I don't know if y'all can see that in the background, but that's my second vision board. Essentially what a vision board is, you go get a poster board from your local drugstore or from CVS or the grocery store, whatever. And then you cut out magazine articles, pictures, phrases. You go to the newspaper, anywhere that you see something that like talks to you essentially, and you put it on your board. And that's your vision board. And so it's interesting. So Kathy had me do a vision board, and I did my first vision board, I guess it was like 2010. And it was really eye-opening for me. Like it talked about teaching and living life fully and eating well and, feeling balanced. And I would say as a doctor, I was, feeling a bit unbalanced actually. And I used to teach quite a bit when I was in the hospital, whether it was in the operating room with other residents or medical students. I would do didactic talks at the hospital as well. So I love teaching. And so from this, Kathy and I looked at what my vision board said. And that was when I said, let me go and start teaching in our local schools, see if that would work for me. But you can, so a few ideas to kind of delve a little deeper into the concept of what do I truly love would be to create your own vision board. And you can do that with your kids if you want. They can create their own, you can create your own. And it could be, you could even color it and put flowers or whatever you want your vision board to be. It's meant to be a fun, exploratory exercise.
How long did it take for you to make that first vision board? Could it just kind of evolve over
No, I did it over a weekend. I just kind of pulled things out of the magazine, cut them out, and then I just kind of taped them down. So my first vision board, it sits next to my desktop computer, to the left of my desktop computer. And I look at it every day, and every day there's something on it that I see that I'm like, yeah, well, it just affirms what I'm doing is where I should be right now. So you never know what it might show you. For me, it was very eye-opening, and perhaps for any of you all, it might be an eye-opening exercise as well.
Mm-hmm.
So along this path, a few other things I would recommend. There's a bunch of books all about Ikigai. There are different ones that, throw out some very probing questions, you know, and that might help you to kind of come to the conclusion of what you truly do love, what really does spark your interests. And then there's one other that I would recommend, and it's called, there's a course, and you can do a virtual option with it. You can buy the book, you can buy the workbook. It's called Designing Your Life. And it's written by these two gentlemen from Stanford University. And it's a great, again, it's like probing questions to help you to kind of get to the next stage, perhaps, of your life. So those would be the couple ways I would maybe approach the first question, what you love.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the thing, like the top circle, right?
That's the top circle.
Right.
Then the next circle is, what are you good at? So that's, you know, you have to just make your own assessment. Are you more creative? Are you more analytical? Do you like to work alone? Do you like to work in a group? You need to kind of figure out where your strengths are and perhaps how best to apply them, whether it's in a work setting or in a passion project kind of setting. So for me, I do like to work in groups, but I also like to work on my own. I love collaborating with people. I'm very curious, so I like to keep learning. So I think it's important to see where your strengths are so that you can tap into those strengths.
Yeah, you know, I remember when I was my first job out of college, I worked in microelectronics of all things before I went into pharmaceuticals. But they gave me, after a while, they just threw me in a place that they called it an integration engineer, and that was a place where everybody from every other department was designing their little piece of our they were flat panel displays basically at the time. You know, everybody made a different piece of it, right? And there was a person who was tasked with just basically making sure that everybody fit together right, or else the whole thing wouldn't work, right? And they put me there as an integration engineer, and that's when I realized, well, I was like, wow, you know, I think I'm pretty good at this, bringing together a lot of these different pieces from all these different places. And so, you know, so when I was reflecting on these questions, you know, one of my strengths, I was thinking about, okay, integrating things, okay, building things, you know, things like that. So yeah, I think it's a great question to ask.
But I think it's interesting. You mentioned that this happened when you first came out of college. And one thing that I would love to stress, and perhaps we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, but this whole concept of Ikigai and assessing and addressing these four areas, what I love, what I'm good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for, that can change over time. It's not a static, like it's in today's moment, but your moments might change in a year. Your circumstances might change. Like I have kids that are now in college, but a few years ago they were still home. So one of my purposes mainly then was to provide for them. Now they're gone and I can provide. You know, my mission is a little bit altered and a little bit different. So your circumstances change over time. And that's why I offer to everybody that this is a journey, and it's an evolving journey, and it might change. And it's a good guide to like assess where you are today and perhaps reassess again in a year or two and kind of see have I gone off path? Am I still aligned with my values? Am I still kind of plugging along toward my purpose? Is my, what I love, is it a little bit different now? And how can I tweak it? So
I can see my strengths, you know, changing over time and things like that, you know, as we gain more life experiences. So that's what we love, what our strengths are. The third one is
can be
helpful. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, the third one, let's go through like what you can be rewarded for. So like we all need some kind of reward, whether it's a monetary reward or even just feedback here on our Instagram, just, you know, realizing that we're reaching out to people and people are responding and learning from us. Like for me, my reward is not monetary, but it's really the currency of education and educating more people and having a broader audience to teach healthier living. So everyone's reward could be different, but I think we all have a need for some type of reward or some validation.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be appreciated. You know, there's we want to be, and the thing is, no matter what we do, we're having impact on the world. You know, this just comes down to if it's going to be helpful or not. You know, and are we being valuable, you know, to other people, you know? So no matter what, when we're interacting with everybody, there's going to be that point at which, you know, it's just wonderful to know that we've done something helpful to somebody, and then that they acknowledge it, right, to some extent, right? Hard to say that with young children, but, you know, maybe one day they'll appreciate it. But like, you know, but, you know, just that reward is so important. So.
Yeah. And then finally, the last one is what the world needs. So like, what social good can you contribute to? And that could be something local. It could be something global. You know, it just will help you feel like connected and a greater sense of purpose. Like right now, I know we're all going through like really rough times. These last few years have been far from rough, you know, really rough for all of us. And now we have this Ukrainian war happening, and we all just have to, you know, maybe it's bonding and making a donation to an effort in the Ukraine or whatever it might be. But everyone's sense of purpose with their social need is different. So for example, like for me with Soul Food Salon, my model is where I have these events and various people attend them, and I don't ask for any form of payment for people to attend. However, each year I partner with a different nonprofit in our local area of the Bay Area that's aligned with my mission of education and living a healthier life, eating more whole food, and hopefully that the planet will benefit as well. And so each year, whatever project or nonprofit I'm aligned with, I ask the attendees to make a donation to that nonprofit for me. So like, so this year, for example, I'm partnered with a local Bay Area group called Fresh Approach, and we are helping to fund a mobile farmers market in a very at-need community that it's not a food desert per se, but the population in the area, I don't think they're eating many fresh fruits and vegetables. And so we bring this local farmers market to, actually it's kind of near like a health center, and it comes once a week, and we help pay for that. And it's a locally sourced food from local farmers, and the mobile market accepts the food benefits, the SNAP program benefits. And so the hope is to have that be ongoing, but that's how I approach like the social need. And so the truth is, like, so all four of those circles, if you know, they you know, your circles, your Ikigai could be, your purpose could be, you know, benefiting your family or your community. It could be little or it could be big. It doesn't have to be anything very grandiose. I don't want this to be something that's like very daunting for people. Again, it's meant to be hopefully a framework and a guide that maybe will help you create purpose and balance and direction in your life. And it's meant, I'm hoping that I can inspire you to maybe find your Ikigai, because I feel very grateful. I feel as if I have found mine, and it just feels so nice. It feels really like I have a sense of purpose every time I wake up in the morning, to learn and to teach. And I'm eternally grateful that I've been given this opportunity, and I hope that I could share with you all so that you guys also can be on that same path. And perhaps, Ed, sounds like you maybe have found your Ikigai as well.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not using those exact terms, but I mean, when because, you know, at the time I did probably a similar exercise, but not necessarily with the structure, right? And especially when I was deciding to create Neuro Reserve, right? Because, you know, when you were talking about what is your how can you help people, or what is the social good, right? That we want to create. I remember one thing you wrote, and that was, you said it doesn't have to be, or it doesn't have to be hard. There are plenty of problems in the world that you can solve, because and there are problems at large scale. There's problems at small scale. So yeah, so we shouldn't look at this as something, you know, what I take from it is that we shouldn't look at this as something that should be daunting or be very difficult or super challenging or anything like that. We can just look at the world around us. We see problems, and there's always a place for us to solve something. I mean, for me, it was pretty obvious, you know, well, not obvious, I guess, but it's, you know, I have family history of neurodegenerative disease, and just want to make sure that happens less, you know. Right. So, you know, and everything else, all the other circles come together, right, and they support that into a mission and into a purpose, and that little confluence point in the very center where all those four, circles overlap. That's almost like a little keyhole where you can kind of almost like look inside. I imagine it as like a little keyhole, and you look inside and you can discover, these ways in which we can live our lives in a very super fulfilling way. So yeah, I mean, that's just, that's just my take on it. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that this concept of reassessing is just, I think you're hitting something really important there. It's, our lives will change as we go from early life to midlife to later life. Everything's going to be changing along the way. And so, but one thing I wanted to cover before we finish up is also, how can we bring Ikigai into our daily lives, just on at a daily level, and how does it show up in your life on a daily level? So.
I mean, I think, expressing gratitude and optimism as much as you can, maybe trying a journaling, just to trying to really delve into that gratitude, and perhaps it will help you to be more present and more mindful. Like really trying to be in the moment is a way to be in an Ikigai kind of state on a daily basis. Exercising every day, eating well, predominantly plant-based.
Yeah, like you mentioned,
getting out in nature.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to, I think you mentioned also in another place when I was reading about you've written about Ikigai quite a bit, and so what it does is, like you're saying, it causes us to make healthier choices, actually, exercise, nutrition. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
And actually, it's interesting you say that. So in Okinawa, well, I guess really just anyone that would practice Ikigai concepts, you would tend to be healthier, and you would have healthier other habits as well. And you would then be the example for, and you would probably hang out with people that are manifesting those healthy habits too.
Yeah.
Being out in nature. Come on, come inside. My dog now wants to visit our Instagram live. I find being out in nature is extremely grounding, and I find that I can really tap into my flow state and my creative mind more if I am not listening to any music, if I'm not on the phone. Unfortunately now, a lot of times I'm listening to books or listening to a podcast, which inspires me as well. But I do find that when I am not, and I'm just like listening to the birds and watching the beauty around me, I come home with like 10 things on my creative to-do list to do, because it really helps me to feel more grounded, just being out in nature. I mean, I don't know where everyone lives that's here. I'm lucky that I live here in California, and, I can be outside most every day, and I'm amongst the trees, and my neighbors have horses, and it's just I find, you have to feel grounded, and whether it's being outside or being with your animals or your family, I think that's just really important.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about also is that it allows us almost to see how things fit together in our lives better, and almost contextualizes things better. Like basically for me, it means less frustration. Like having that sense of purpose and vision and seeing that structure of Ikigai, what it does is it gives me a greater perspective, so that there's less frustration if something comes up and there's a bump in the road during the day, right? During any day, right? I see the bigger picture. There's a story unfolding, right? Of this overall vision. And so, bumps in the road, and challenges along the way, it makes it a little bit easier to just kind of say, oh, okay, that's part of a greater, bigger unfolding story going on.
Right. And I think that is really important to pay attention to. Like, I think having that bigger structure helps you be more resilient and more adaptable, and perhaps, realizing that you are just a small little thing in this whole big world, but what you do and what you can contribute can be really important.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, this is great. I think it's hugely illuminating to bring forward the concept of Ikigai, and to start to educate people on this, not only from the brain health standpoint, but also just from an overall, life purpose standpoint, and I just, it's hugely helpful. And thank you so much for joining.
I have a huge passion for teaching Ikigai.
So, yeah, don't forget, everybody, it's what you love, what you're strong at, what you can be rewarded for, and then what drives the social good, you know, and all four of those things kind of come together. And, you know, I don't do as good a job as that diagram you showed earlier, but, you know,
no, you're doing a great job
coming together. And there's, you know, just want to let people know that if you want to learn more about you know what Jeannie's doing at Soul Food Salon, it's really easy to do. Now all you need to do is go to soulfoodsalon.com. So that's soulfoodsalon.com. Or of course there's Instagram, Soul Food Salon. So right here on Instagram as well. But if you log into her website at soulfoodsalon.com, you can sign up for the newsletter there. And on this topic of Ikigai, Jeannie wrote a wonderful article on it. So it's like, it has a little bit more detail, obviously has a wonderful diagram there. And right now it's on our website at neuroreserve.com. There is a section on neuroreserve.com called Whole-Minded, some resources, and that's our journal. And there you can find the article on Ikigai, where it's basically a great notes from this conversation, essentially, you know, some great things that we mentioned, also some additional detail there. So,
you know, feel free to reach out to me, any of y'all, if you have any questions. I'm happy to be a sounding board and a cheerleader and maybe a guide for education and for finding your passion. I'm a firm believer in all of this, so I'm happy to help support whomever would want support.
That's great. That's great. And remember, just like, yeah, I have a note here that I wrote down as it was kind of inspired to write it, you know, before we got on. And that is, you know, no matter what we're doing, and, you know, in the world, we're having an impact. As much as we might think we're not, or whether we do think we are, we're having an impact. And the question just becomes, how do we channel it to be something that's positive, you know, and that's where purpose comes into play. So, so anyway, so thanks again, Jeannie. Really appreciate you coming on here and
Thank you.
helping educate us.